the bold analysis. President Ruto must actually be wary of the globalist agenda that are posturing here as apologists of the situation. For the past 1 week, Kenya has been receiving, and the Statehouse has been receiving high-profile delegation of diplomats from the world powers. And I think even today, there is a very interesting photos that have been emerging, and someone has just shared that diplomats from U.S. Embassy and UK was spotted entering Gate A of State House under tight security. They even blocked the road for them. And what could have been the issue? The high-profile delegation of the diplomats from the world powers are now being experienced at a time Kenya is experiencing its worst threat in the 20th century. The young people of the country are saying Nanenane, that they will take to the street. And of course, I have every reason to be wary about this. I just want to look at some two recent meetings. Raila Odinga shared a meeting, had a productive discussion with German's ambassador, Diplomats, and UK High Commissioner Neil Wigan on recent developments. And now the recent developments are the protests and the current broad-based mongrel with Ruto and my AU Commission candidacy. We all agree a strong and stable Africa benefits us all. Grateful for Germany and the UK's continued commitment to engagement. Raila Odinga should stop meeting these fellows in this country and fuel the jet and move across the continent, because I don't think these ambassadors here are going to have much of the influence in the other African countries, because there are different contexts and different factors as much as that context is concerned. William Samoei Arap Ruto has also met another delegation today, and the State House are sharing this. Kenya and the United States have long historical ties which have expanded into our common democratic tradition, peace and security in Eastern Africa, the fight against terrorism and people-to-people relations. Met the U.S. Under Secretary of State and State for Civilian Security, Democracy and Human Rights, Ezra Zaya, at State House, Nairobi. From the president's post, it's on civilian security. The government has been boasting of civilian control of the protest, democracy, and human rights, Ezra, and human rights. Now, these three have been at the center of the protest. And there is something I don't understand about the Western powers, because, some of this, sometimes you don't buy in. When they were in Nairobi, and even for the previous protests that have been going on, a story was unleashed about more than 87 bodies in city mortuary. And the previous protests that have been experienced in the country, even in the 2023, the number of violations of human rights and police brutality were reported in full glare of the cameras. And they have been seeing that the state is being hell-bent to prosecute perpetrators and bring them to book. I'm not seeing them acting like they really care about those violations. But of course, they will always try to act after and issue travel advisory to their citizens not to come in the country. But the real act of putting government accountable is not being seen. It cannot be felt. I may be wrong on this, but I think this is something that we need to speak about. Much as they come out as they care about it, about what's happening in the country, with children, with photos of children being shot, with instances of abductions, and this, we have killings. All this have been reported, but there is no, even the US ambassador in the country, there is no single day they have highlighted even one story. Nation Media Group and the mainstream media have been highlighting these stories. There is no single day they have even highlighted one story and called out the police. In fact, I was just speaking with one of the diplomats on saying, if you want to see the hypocrisy of the Western powers, especially in the Kenyan context, is Kenyans are talking about violations. And Kenyans are saying something is going wrong here. But they have not. They have been acting dumb. They have been acting dumb. And of course, the continent of Africa must be wary. I agree. Look at the level of, look at how they are acting like they're involved, they're so much interested in what's happening here, and like there's some ceasefire. I think the Kenyan problem is more indigenous, and the Western powers will not be able, and not, because first they're not interested in it. They're not so much interested in it, and President Ruto must be wary. Before anything, they should first call out. At least call out. They are funding, yes. They're funding some NGOs here and there to push these prosecutions. But the government, the justice system is entirely on the government side. The DPP is a government employee. The DCI is a government employee. It's the judiciary, the president judiciary is on government side. So you cannot say that you're just meeting the other side. I think I'm not seeing them listening to the voice of the people. Now, I know I've just looked at this, and I have a raft of what could be behind the current discussions, the influx of these foreign powers. Number one, the potency of power transition. If there is something that threatens Western powers, is that transition. If you look at what's happening in Kenya, and now Nigeria, it also happened in Bangladesh. Now, there's something you realize of those three countries. Number one, something identical to those three countries, they're all British colonies. And there is also another protest going on in British. It's also another deadly one. Huh? And those who were in UK, I don't know, you can tell us why. I'm not seeing police presence in the streets, by the way. So only police in Awatu. People are just protesting themselves. There's something identical about those three protests, those three countries. They're all allies of the US. Nigeria is an ally of the US, and Tinubu was one of the most traveling presidents in Africa alongside the President Ruto, same with Bangladesh. And the transition, and if you look at, then if you come to Africa, the Western nations, there was transition that was orchestrated through the military. The military is going the street through the coup d'etats in the military. Now, what's happening in Kenya is civilian unrest that could also end up in some sort of a coup. So that is showing you that the Western powers are looking at some potency of transition, that these things can end up, because if Nanenane ends up into a coup, then the military takes over and you don't know who is going to be the next president and how that will turn out. So I think that's one of the dangers that is there. Number two, the government has been crying out, the government of Kenya has been saying that there is some Western powers that have infiltrated the protest. So I don't want to agree, I don't want to oppose that, but Kenya is a non-NATO US ally. Could it be on that ground that people are also, the diplomats are telling the president that, okay, there could be enemies, but these enemies are not so and so, and they're so and so. So that infiltration by Western powers could be one of the angles, could be one of the threats of Nanenane, why these diplomats are now coming in the country to try to maybe now talking with the two leading leaders. And I wish that they understand that not those two will really have the remote to put on and off what's happening in the country. the Sudan and DRC talks also collapsed. And the Tshisekedi, the president of DRC, is blaming President Ruto that it is because of his handling of the Nairobi process that that process has collapsed. The Nairobi process that was being led by former President Uhuru Kenyatta was hijacked by President Ruto. And I think Tshisekedi, the DRC president, is now complaining to President Ruto that he's the person who, remember that Ruto was blamed to be supporting Rwanda, and he's a bit taken side on that M23 conflict that is going on. So probably it is, these diplomats are also looking at the situation in Congo and Sudan. Ruto was in the US and he complained that the Western powers are so much interested about the Gaza, the Israel, and the UK and the Ukraine and the Russia. But in Africa, there is less interest. And lastly, it could be trying to lobby, push for the interest of AU post in favor of Raila Odinga, so that probably Raila will advance the American agenda, the Western agenda, in that AU post. Ladies and gentlemen, that is my take. You can also tell us what you think about the influx of the diplomats in the country. Thank you.
No nyagi mono bembe nyaka chunya no ye neo bena kana wachera ne guma.
Buda? En gi kambi ne? Koro en momiyo ni gik moko mokelo. Koro iluonge ni Kevin. Koro ilam ni alama.
Ana lama makon Nyasaye wura gwedhi nyikwaya kata ma ok ang'eyo.
Lwete.
Yeso pake. Kutendere so baba.
En mokelo ni chiwo.
Chiwo mokelo bende ne chiwo mokelo
ada pako yeso
pako
yeso ai Nyasaye ber ke
no neno ka Nyasaye ber
ber ke neno sabun mogo
gimichiedo godo.
She used to live in this one, so the community built her big house.
Nyasembo mineno cha okelo welo
Mobio mosi.
karibu
Aya udhot.
Oja siaya. Mama.
Yako ni mtu tunacho. Na wale mkoa. Wale metira salamu. Sasa cha kendo gono. Ako ni lo kama nuwa. Tera ni bene sai. No kange na bundu. Neno kikelo na wele wanga.
Mobio mosi.
kumosa kama ale
Leno
kama
Oro. Mama makelo ni kama gocha. Ilu ngeni ngacha. Nyaka paro nyinge.
ngani nyabungu
Nyabungu. Mama sogocha.
ngani ne kama
Kuro lamne matin kachien nus dakika. Lamne matin.
la mi jalo turuog muono to kanon
Kevin emochung ka manigi law makwarni
Kamano.
makoro koni mondo bio mosi
Arwako mama.
okelo ni gik moko matin ka makonyo del
Kamano.
mudong to watiko gi lamo kamano koro gik mag
Mama matabika. Anti para gadunga abiro ka mang'eny. Mai makati to majan to mai chak. Mogo nitie. Ng'eya. Biparo nyinga.
Nyingi to kapar kinuono. Ibeg manya kachimuono. Kendi miyo welo. Onda nyoka udi chimo kawuono. En wit mar mano. Nigo duto magikelo. Chwa kendo wuon wa Jehova Nyasaye. Loch ni e lweti ngimani e lweti Baba. Neno ka malaika mayongo biro ira mondo alamne. Wuora teko ni e lweti ngimani e lweti. Wuora kalamo ne nyathini. Teko ni e lweti ngimani e lweti Nyasaye. Wago niero kamano mang'eny. Mana kumi nigi ng'wono ni ambe nying Yesu Kristo Ruto.
Watane joma paro ni tikie kache koda mundu yeto gi jok modhier gi mjawi. Erokamano Jehova, wigi chunyno gitim ne ng'ato onge wegi. Gin johawi nikech gimiwacho ok nyal dhi nono Nyasachwa. Erokamano odiochieng' mine mane ipango kapod giwuotho Nyasachwa owuoth kodgi. Wawinjo ni gin maber, wanagone ni erokamano. Kuom Happy New Year Kristo ma Jawar. Amina. Erokamano.
Erokamano. Koro mama makelo niga mwandu cha. Kawuono en gosiepne moro. Nyathini wuode moro obiro kelo ni mwandu.
Nyithindo duto mawuotho kata oganda ni owuotho in in kodgi. Dhano kuth kende maonge in. Lo jatichni obiro kar ka wuod Nyasaye to wang'o tama mang'eye godo kata manene godo. Koro dhowa fulo nyingwa to wang'a to ok nene. Koro in wuon mare to in min mare. Med rite kobiro kar ka kata kokelo na alot no bed mari.
Ana chiwo ni mburu kuro kuro ka ada
Dala ni kama mtu.
dala en kata kuro no kelu kon kuro wan ka tiyo dara jogo kaka nyalo wuotho kaka nyalo wuotho diero ok nyalo erokamano nasoma
Miyo nyaka Daudi Jehova Nyasaye wuonwa e nyathi matin to paro oganda emomiyo Nyasachwa orie bade koparo chien kokelo gigi mondo okony nyithindi ma ok nyal. Nyasachwa erokamano erokamano erokamano. Apime kod dhako maber mantiere e ngeche mwasomo 31 mane tiyo matek to konyo jogo modhier kod jochan kod mwandu ne en owuon. Wuonwa erokamano timo kamano kod mwandu ne en owuon badno timo go yore moko opogore mag joma sani. Agoni erokamano Nyasachwa kod mama ne kaachiel kod owadgi wuoniti e nying Yesu Kristo Ruodhwa.
Wuoth mapako. Mano maduong' madang' awachi. Ka Nyasaye otimo dwache kuoma, ber na mogik.
koro sani to wuoda ni ema kelo